Already seeing some familiar names, familiar clubs. Strong riders in this race. Now, this being the Bologna TT course, it is very nasty course. First time I ever saw it was on the channel Ride with Hairbend. He absolutely smashed that TT. Like he put a solid effort flying up that mountain, and it's looking at the pro pods, essentially flat. Goes downhill for most of the way, and then it slowly starts to pitch up. Kind of holds 1-2% until you get to the start of the climb, and then the climb is absolutely nasty. So it ranges from 10 to 16%, if I remember correctly. So I fully expect to be in some pain. I've got to finish this race before my next one starts. My next race starts in, I'll tell you right now, events. I believe it starts at 7:05. Yeah, so 43 minutes from now. So I have to, since I have a half an hour or so to finish this race, to then get into the pen for the next one. So the idea is, I can finish sub 20, right around 20 minutes, then I got essentially 10 minutes that I can kind of rest and regroup. And then we're off to the Royal Pump Room 8, which is a nasty course. But I rode it for the first time and many times in the last FRR in November, October, November, and I like it. It's a good course, lots of ups and downs. I felt like for my style of racing was good. So hopefully I have the legs to this TT to compete in that second round. Even though this stage 1 and stage 2 are for ranking purposes, so as long as you finish them, and even if you don't, so the way Rich put it out there, who's a race organizer, is if you can't finish the first one in time, then jump into the second one, finish the second, and then let him know. And they will still use that data to calculate what pen you should be in. Obviously, if you can't finish the first one, then it's likely going to be that you're going to be in one of the lower category pens. I'm hoping to finish both. I can also do this again January 2nd and 3rd. But January 2nd, going up Alpe du Zwift with the Dirty Watts TTT group, which ultimately is going to end up being probably a solo effort for all of us, because who does a TTT up duets? Like, not a world tour team. We don't have Simon Yates or any of the big names off the front leading us, pacing us up the climb until we're ready to attack and claim the victory. So, 5 minutes. You can see I am sporting my in real life jersey for Dirty Watts, or the Dirt Team. If you're not familiar with the name, it stands for Dad's Indoor Riding Trainers. Not that you have to be a dad or well, you have to be indoors riding trainers because that's kind of how Zwift works. But there are plenty of people on the team that are not dads, that are moms. So they have the Merc jersey in pinkish purple. I think as long as you're a cool person, I'm sure they take more than just parentals on the team. We're just getting warmed up. Those of you new to my channel, welcome. Those returning, welcome back. This is stage 1 of 2 for the Flamme Rouge Racing Tour Watopia. Stage 1 is the Bologna TT, 8 kilometers with about 2 and change kilometers of pure hell. And then immediately after, we go to the Royal Pump Room 8 with things like 250 or 300 meters of elevation gain. So all in all today, it's gonna be a rough start, but the way the race organizers have put it together, the way Rich put it together this time around is doing these back-to-back is what they're going to use to classify the racers and categorize us. And then starting January 6th is the actual stage races from the 6th through the 12th. 12th being the last stage and the absolute worst of all of them. 92 kilometers and 2,200 meters of elevation across the 4 horsemen, deemed the 6 horsemen for that stage. So my goal starting December was to get stronger and lighter for that stage. So far, I've edged on both boundaries, gotten a little bit stronger and a little bit lighter. But I still got effectively 2 weeks to go on my weight loss journey for that last stage and my strength journey. But I don't see myself gaining too much in strength from now until then. There's gonna be a lot of zone 2 between now and then, until the race officially starts on the 6th. So far it looks like a good group. About 20 plus people in the pen. Which means all sorts of abilities in the pen. And then also it's going to make for very, very exciting race. Again, this is a TT. My focus is me, my abilities. Even though having other people on the course while you're racing does give you something to aim for when it comes to passing people and moving up in the ranks. 45 seconds on the clock.
Right on.
My goal is to be modest and stay in my FTP range for the first little bit, and then hopefully stay in my FTP range for the climb.
Right on.
All dependent on whether or not I can keep it together. Get my momentum up.
So while listening to a podcast yesterday, the Invoke podcast, the person being interviewed was talking about, when it comes to heat training as well as other events, you want to get your momentum up early. And that's essentially how I took this time trial is I wanted to make sure that I got my wattage up to where I wanted it to be, as well as my speed up to where I wanted it to be. And really, like I mentioned earlier, my focus was staying in around my FTP, which is 259 right now. And, that's kind of where I stayed through the ups and downs. I, did my best to not, push too hard as I was going downhill, um, but made sure I stayed on my, essentially on my speed. So that way I didn't lose any ground. And then, on the uphill, I didn't want to push too hard until obviously it came time to get to this actual final climb. And as you can see, the way this route is shaped, it's basically like a bowl. So the first part of the stage is ever so slightly pitched downward, and then it kind of settles down in the middle, which is kind of right where I'm at now, is at the end of that. And then little by little, it starts pitching up. You see the kind of stair step approach on the HUD. And it's basically what it does from here on out. It sort of stair steps upward until the base of the KOM. And then once we get to the start of the KOM, it is brutal. And you can see the red, orange blinking, like it is unforgiving when you get to that first part. And so, again, my approach was I wanted to stay within my FTP, sort of around my FTP. I I dropped my chain. That's why I stopped. I was like, man, why did I stop there? Oh yeah, I dropped my chain. Which, man, I was so frustrated because it, cost me a couple places, but thankfully I ended up taking that back. And so again, I was, holding right around the, mid 250s, but and then, I started noticing that on the steeper parts, I was staying in the, upper 280s, 290s, 300s, and really holding that, and it felt good. That is where I feel like was a little bit of a difference for me when it came to, previous races is, I felt good holding around 300. You can see my heart rate's in the 170s still, which is getting up there towards the top of my limit, but it wasn't, I wasn't feeling like I was not going to make it. There were parts like, coming up here where we start getting to steeper bits. That corner was up into the 20s and then back down to 15, 16%. This part here, my quads were hurting and I started feeling like, okay, maybe I need to take a break. But looking at the terrain, I kept focusing on, okay, what's the next hill? How long is it going to take me to get there? As you can see, my phone, my sweat dripped onto my phone again, as prescribed. And, that little bit of time, which passed really quickly in the replay, but in actuality, it took, probably 10, 15 seconds you know, to get through that. And that, those extra seconds that it takes in terms of distractions, um, can really mess you up. As you can see, my wattage just before this, my wattage dropped into the upper 100s, low 200s, coming around that bend. And then, now I'm back up and kind of refocused. And at this point, I'm just looking to, get to the end. I see it coming up and I see the slope is starting to come down a little bit. And as we get to the top and it flattens out, at that point, I'm not worried about, when I cross the line. I knew I wasn't going to get, no one else was going to pass me across the line. So just did what I could and getting there to the next stage, which is the Royal Pump Room 8. It's a figure eight course that goes through Yorkshire, and the various different climbs. And as you can see by the sawtooth pattern, either on sauce or in the mini map, there are no flats. Like there are a couple little, these little blue sections here and there that are flat, but you don't really get a break in this course. You're either going uphill or you're coasting downhill ever so slightly, which is about all you're going to get. in terms of a break. And then, because this is a classification race, there is no draft. Um, and that, in a way almost messed me up a bit because I was hoping to, especially after my effort on the Bologna TT, I was hoping to, get a little bit of rest here in the draft and kind of, I was hoping we would stay together as a group, but as you can see, it just did not happen. So this rider here, Hannah, man, he or she, is absolutely, strong. They started passing me, and little by little, I was like, okay, maybe I can hold on to their wheel. And again, because no drafting, they just started slowly pulling away. And at that point, I was just like, all right, well, my race is done in terms of, you know, trying to stay up with that person. I was just gonna again continue racing my race, and that's one of the comments that someone had asked about when before we started this stage. They're like, oh my God, can we take it easy a bit and this and that, and I made the comment, let the person know, or let the group know, the chat know that hey, this is it's a classification race. You race your race. It doesn't matter what your ability is. Just race your race. Um, as you can see, I had a couple guys pass me here, and my thought again is just, can I stay with this group? Can we, not necessarily work together because there is no draft, but can we kind of pace each other? And that's really what, in terms of my thoughts on this, in terms of working together, is really where I was at. You know, can I use them to pace me? Can they use me to pace them? And we kind of help each other that way. You see the rider, cycling Brian, coming up behind me, and little by little he's closing in the gap. And I was watching his pace and seeing if I could, kind of essentially stay with that same pace, so that way, when he caught up, we could kind of again, work together and pace off of each other. But as you see his name pop up on the bottom, little by little, he catches up to me and then passes me, and just held a strong, strong pace. So much so that I could not keep up on this climb. And I thought, okay, I'll get to the top of the climb. Got a nice little descent going. We're on the Zwift aero bike, which is not really it's not a great bike. It's a heavy bike, so it's going to be better on these downhills. I'm on the DT Swiss disc wheels for this stage. Again, a heavy set of wheels, so I figure, hey, I can probably catch up on the downhill. But nope, he held his pace, or held his distance, and stayed roughly about 40 plus seconds ahead of me. His you can kind of see where he's at, about 30 seconds now, and then the person that just passed me, Fowler, again is you know 20-ish seconds ahead of me, and just kind of picking up steam. And I again am in that area where it's no man's land. I'm 30 45 seconds in between two different groups, and that can be frustrating because you're essentially on your own. And at the same time, my focus is, can I stay away from the people behind me, as well as catch up to the people ahead of me. And that kind of keeps me staying at the pace I'm at. My focus with these races, especially in the situation I'm in right now, knowing that this is a classification race, is see if I can maintain my average wattage as my FTP. Can I stay in the 250s? Can I stay in the 300s on the climb, and kind of repeat the effort that I did prior to on the prior stage, on the Bologna TT stage, which I thought was probably one of my best performances in terms of a stage, any stage race. Is I think I held my wattage well. I kept my efforts well. You can see my on the graph down at the bottom. My efforts aren't as choppy as they normally are. They're a little bit more consistent, a little bit steadier. This hill always gets me. It's such a it's a great hill if you're strong on that first half to make up distance in between you and the group and the people in front of you if they're close enough. But you have to be able to carry that momentum on the second half, and that's usually where I start to feel the most pain, is on that second half, because I usually overdo it on the first one. And so, here we are, about 3 kilometers left to go, and I know that I'm not going to catch Brian or anybody in front of me, even though I'm getting so close. I'm, within 30 seconds, and just, seeing that gap come down just a little bit, I was like, all right, maybe he's, stalling out a bit, maybe he's having, some difficulty keeping his pace up. And I just thought, hey, maybe I'll try and get the super tuck on this downhill and see if I can catch up, but did not happen. Brian held his held his distance ahead of me. So here we are, the last 100+ meters, and just cruising in. Um, Nobody else behind me is going to catch me at this point, and so there's no point in really, sprinting for the line. The other thing that I'll point out in this, as you can see, a couple of people have the different jerseys. Because this was a classification race, there's really no reason to sprint. No reason to waste your effort on the sprint. Something like this. Now, if in the real race, if we do a stage like this and there's points for sprints or points for, the KOM, stuff like that, then obviously if that's what you're going to go for, then go for it. But on races where it's like a scratch race and you only get points for crossing the line, there's no point in wasting your effort on sprints, because that's just going to, burn, as much as I hate to say it, it's going to burn matches that, you know, that you might need for later on. I'm not a big fan of the matches analogy because I feel like, it limits people, and you get it into your head that, oh, I can only do so much, when in reality, you can do much more than you think you can. You just gotta, take the time, recuperate a bit. I can tell you that on this past Sunday, on December, what was it, 30th, December 30th, I think, or 29th, something like that. Um, yeah, December 29th, the YouTuber, um, Sprints and Cranks Chronicles, I believe. I always mess up his channel name, Rodrigo. So I'll tag him in the video. But he did a birthday ride for the Mega Pretzel, and it was a 4 hour ride. We just under 4 hours. I was very excited about that. That we did sub 4 hours for the 100, almost 107 kilometers, something like that. And we were cruising up the climbs at 300+ watts, or 300-ish watts, 250 around there, um, and kept repeating that. And by the time we got to the very end, because it's 1,600 kilometer elevation gain for that whole ride, by the time we got to the top, or by the time we got to the end, they wanted to do a sprint finish. And, I think I came in second or third on the sprint, partly because it was a custom finish and I completely botched it. I wasn't looking at how many meters left. I was just looking at the sprint banner, or the ending banner in front of the Watopia beach. And I completely botched that sprint. But, I was somewhere between first and third on the sprint, and still put out over 1,100 watts on the sprint, which I was excited about because that's the first time I've ever, you know, gone above 1100 on my wattage. So, it's, if you understand your body and how you use fuel and how to fuel properly for those rides and for races, you will have the energy you need to get to the finish and to perform when you want to perform. So, just wanted to share. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this. I will, see you on the next video. This is my last, even though this will be posting as the first video of the year. This is the last, essentially, event I did of the year, and then we'll be moving on to stages 3 and beyond on January 6th, and then obviously ZRL and the TTTs in the beginning of the year. So hope you had a great new year, and I will catch you guys on the next one.